morning. I'm Deirdre Bolton. Thank you for streaming with us. In today's update, the Supreme Court has ruled that Arizona's restrictive voting laws do not violate Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The justices ruled 6-3 that the restrictions were not enacted with a racially discriminatory purpose. This is a win for Republicans who have enacted 22 new laws in 14 states, making it harder for people to vote. We'll have more on what this means for the battle over voting rights in just a moment. Attorneys for the Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg says he will plead not guilty after he turned himself into authorities, as prosecutors here in New York are expected to file tax fraud charges against him and the organization. In a statement, the Trump Organization accused prosecutors of using Weisselberg as a pawn. We have the very latest on the expected charges. And officials in Surfside, Florida, say the search and rescue efforts are on pause amid concerns over structural integrity. At least 18 people have died. 145 are still unaccounted for after the deadly condo building collapse. Officials say the search for survivors is on hold after a structural shift of 6 to 12 inches in the part of the tower that is still standing. As of now, there is no timeline for resuming the search. Our team is on the scene with the very latest from Surfside. We are going to start, though, with that breaking news in Washington, the Supreme Court's ruling in a major voting right case. The High Court upholds Arizona's restrictions, saying they were not enacted with a racially discriminatory purpose. The judgment of the Court of Appeals is reversed, and the cases are remanded for further proceedings consistent with this opinion. I want to bring in right now senior Washington reporter, that's Devin Dwyer. He is going to help us break all of this down. So, Devin, first and foremost, what can we make of the justice's decision here?
Well, Deirdre, this was a huge case, the biggest voting rights case at the Supreme Court in nearly a decade. And it comes at a time, of course, when voting rights are front and center in this country. Dozens of states are looking at new restrictions on voting laws. So this case was significant in what it will say about how those laws can be challenged. It involved 2 Arizona voting restrictions. These predated the 2020 election. They were back in 2011, 2016. One involved tossing out ballots cast in the wrong precinct. The other involved banning third-party ballot collection. The Supreme Court said neither of those violate Section 2, are racially discriminatory, but they also went a little bit further, and this is where this decision is significant. The Supreme Court said that it's equal openness that's important, not equal outcome in voting. And the Voting Rights Act was set up in 1965 to ensure equal opportunity for everyone, but also with a close eye on racial disparities in outcomes, in results, in how people can get to the polls and access the ballot. And today, the Supreme Court limited that sweeping mandate by the Voting Rights Act, saying basically states, courts, judges will need to look at the openness, the opportunity, and less on the outcome of who can get to the polls.
And, Devin, I mean, this seems to be a win for members of the GOP. They've enacted 22 new laws in 14 states, making it harder for people to vote. So going forward, what does this mean for voting rights in this country?
Quite simply, Deirdre, it means it's going to be harder now for Democrats and civil rights advocates to challenge these state voting laws in court. And the court system has been sort of the last line of defense against this wave of voting laws passed just in the past few months in the wake of the 2020 election, in the wake of the lies pushed by President Trump and Republicans that there was widespread voter fraud, that this was somehow a botched election. It really wasn't. There was no evidence of that, widespread evidence of that, and certainly none in Arizona. The Republicans in Arizona attest to that. But with all these laws proliferating, making it harder for people to get absentee ballots, to wait in line at polling places, to drop off their ballots in future elections, Democrats and civil rights advocates see discrimination here. They see politics. They see Republicans trying to make it harder for certain constituencies to make their voices heard. And now, because of this decision today from the Supreme Court, it's going to be much more difficult. The bar is higher now to have to prove in court whether or not, in fact, these things are being put in place on the basis of race. Deirdre.
Devin, thank you so much. Devin Dwyer. A special grand jury bringing an indictment against the Trump Organization and its CFO Alan Weisselberg, surrendering himself to authorities in New York this morning as charges are expected to be unsealed this afternoon. Chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl has the latest.
This morning, after a 2-year investigation into Donald Trump's business dealings, the first criminal charges against his company have been filed and are now just hours away from being revealed in court. Sources briefed on the investigation tell ABC News the charges against the Trump Organization and its longtime chief financial officer, Alan Weisselberg, include tax fraud. Weisselberger has worked for the company since the 1970s. In one of his old books, Trump said of Weisselberg, quote, he did whatever was necessary to protect the bottom line.
Replacing George this week is my chief financial officer, Alan Weisselberg. And you think George is tough? Wait till you see Alan.
Sources briefed on the investigation say the company and Weisselberg are accused of avoiding taxes on fringe benefits, including cars, school tuition, and rent-free apartments. The charges come after the Manhattan district attorney obtained Trump's tax returns and other financial records in a battle that went all the way to the Supreme Court. Trump has long insisted he runs a clean company and that the investigation is politically motivated.
The continuation of the greatest and most disgusting witch hunt of all time.
Weisselberg is the most important person in the Trump Organization who is not a member of the Trump family. The big question now is whether prosecutors can get him to testify against Donald Trump. Deidre?
Jonathan Karl there for us. And a statement released to ABC News on behalf of the Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg after he surrendered himself to authorities in New York this morning, saying that Weisselberg intends to plead not guilty and he plans to fight these charges in court. So that is the very latest. We will obviously continue to follow the story. In the meantime, former President Trump not expected to be part of these criminal charges, but the investigations being conducted in New York have gone far deeper than any initial indictments might indicate. With us now, ABC News political director Rick Klein, ABC News senior investigative reporter Aaron Katersky for more on the legal and political implications for the former president and his family. So, Aaron, the big question here is, with this case, whether Weisselberg will cut a deal. Will he testify against the former president? I'll start with that. How likely is it?
Well, we can only take him at his word for now, or at least the word of his attorney, who said that Weisselberg will plead not guilty when he is arraigned later this afternoon in state Supreme Court in Manhattan, along with a representative for the company, for the Trump Organization. We expect the same thing, a not guilty plea. But once criminal charges are brought and the weight of a prosecution bears down, prosecutors may be hoping that they can convince Weisselberg to abandon his 48-year loyalty to the Trumps and turn into a cooperating witness. And why is that important? Because Weisselberg, maybe more than any other executive at Donald Trump's side, has the best window into the company's finances. And that's really what's being investigated here. For more than 2 years, the district attorney's office in Manhattan, along with the New York Attorney General's office, have been digging in to all sorts of things, including how Donald Trump's company spends its money and whether they may have tried to hide any income from tax authorities.
Okay, so Rick, I'm going to bring you here on this political angle. I mean, what does this mean for the former president? What does it mean for his family?
Well, on a political level, under normal times, which we are not in right now, you would imagine that bringing criminal charges against any candidate's company would dim prospects, maybe even darken them and eliminate them entirely. But these are, of course, different times. And there's a school of thought out there that a lot of Trump associates have that this make him more likely that he tries to run again. But I think what matters now
Okay, wait,
is what
hang on.
happens
In
next.
what way? Just pure hubris?
Well,
or?
two things. One is that running and having that political exposure may give you some kind of a different defense, that you're out there and maybe scaring prosecutors away because they don't want to play politics. The other is that no one plays the politics of grievance quite like Donald Trump. And you heard in that soundbite right there him talking about a witch hunt. He loves to sink his teeth into some kind of a conspiracy, some kind of an effort to oust him. And in terms of how his supporters react, I mean, we've been through this drill for 5 years now. When something damaging happens to Donald Trump, it does not shake his base. I can't imagine that these local charges in New York are going to change the perceptions that so many Republicans, so many Trump Republicans continue to have of the former president.
So, Aaron, what do these charges tell you? I mean, what are they looking for specifically in these documents? I heard you say financials, but specifically.
Well, I think they're digging into 8 years worth of the former president's personal and business tax returns. And among the things that they're looking at are the kinds of perks and fringe benefits paid to certain executives, including Alan Weisselberg, cars and rent-free apartments and other things, and whether the requisite taxes were paid or whether it's all part of some kind of scheme to avoid taxes in New York and maybe even, to the IRS in the country. And that's just one thing that investigators have been looking at. They've also been looking at hush payments paid to women who alleged affairs long denied with Donald Trump. They've been looking into how he values various properties when he's talking to tax authorities compared to when he's talking to banks seeking loans. And all of that is potential fodder for criminal charges. And what unfolds in court this afternoon, we think, is just a first strike involving Weisselberg and the company itself. And I think for the company, there is some concern that once you're indicted, do banks start calling in loans? This could have real financial consequences for the former president.
Yeah, and surprising as well. I mean, these are criminal charges, which I think kind of stands out, at least in my mind. Shifting gears a little bit, Rick, we know that the former president visited the border yesterday. Would you say from a political standpoint that he still really has a hold on the Republican Party?
There's no question in my mind. And I think yesterday was a great example of this because it wasn't just the former president by himself. It's the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, who's someone who aspires to the presidency himself, maybe a candidate that Donald Trump isn't. And more than 30 House Republicans made that trip to the border on the same day that the House was voting to establish that select committee investigating January 6th. They chose to spend the day with the former president instead. And the fact that Abbott was out there saying they're going to continue the construction of the border wall. You heard the chants from the crowd, some people saying you won. That is a pretty tangible and strong example of the hold he has on the party.
So you just mentioned this select committee, and it seems that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has named Liz Cheney to be on. Were you surprised? You're probably not surprised because you're very plugged in, but
this is a twist on the plot around this select committee. So the House Speaker gets 8 selections. The Democrats get 8 choices, and they gave one to a Republican, a former member of Republican leadership, Liz Cheney. Now, I've been around long enough to be shocked that anyone named Cheney would be Pelosi's choice for anything. That really is.
Here we are.
That is remarkable. But of course, we know that Liz Cheney is one of the few Republicans on record, not just for impeachment of President Trump, but of a full investigation of what happened around January 6th. And this comes amid threats that the House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy has made against any member that might accept an appointment like this. I'll tell you, Liz Cheney doesn't care about those threats. She knows that her career will be made or broken based on this stance. She feels that it's a foundational, fundamental issue, and she put out a statement saying she is proud to serve on this committee, notwithstanding the fact that so many Republicans oppose it.
All right, Rick Klein, thank you so much. Aaron Katersky, thank you. We will continue to bring you updates on this story throughout the day. In the meantime, President Biden is visiting Surfside, Florida today after that deadly building collapse. Surfside officials are temporarily halting operations due to structural concerns of the remaining tower. 18 people have now been confirmed dead. 145 are still unaccounted for 1 week after this deadly collapse. Trevor Ault with me now. He has more on the ground in Florida. So, Trevor, thanks for being here. What do we know about this pause in operations?
Well, Deirdre, we know that we're now about 9 hours into this pause at a time when every second, every minute of the search and rescue is crucial. And we had some police officers tell our ABC News crews this morning, a little bit after 2, that some rescue workers had heard some cracking. We now know from officials that the cause of this pause is beyond just hearing some noise. They say that they have actually noticed some structural shifting, a column that moved 6 to 12 inches, as well as some sliding on the south side portion section of the building, on the base of the building, too. And they say right now, according to their structural engineers who have been on this scene analyzing what is still left standing of this tower, that right now it's not safe for their emergency rescue workers to be inside continuing their search, at least right now. They're going to continue to analyze that structural integrity. The fire chief here on scene said he's optimistic for being able to resume at some point, but he has no timeline right now. And right now, Deirdre, President Biden is now here on the ground. He's been giving a briefing with Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis. They've been talking about how they've been working together. They're frequent political foes, but right now they've been complimentary of each other about how this has been handled. The governor said the president recognized the severity of the situation right away and that he has not been, there's been no bureaucracy. President Biden says this is Florida's show to run, but he thinks he's quite sure the federal government can pay for the search and rescue. The problem is, of course, right now there is no search and rescue that's happening. And there was a lot of concern, including from some family members heading into the president's visit, that his presence alone was going to disrupt the search and rescue even a little bit. They did not want to take even a chance that it could slow down those search efforts. With now a week later, if anyone who has survived this building collapsing on itself, the time is crucial. But now we're 9 hours into this pause, and there's no sign on when it is going to resume. We have families of still 145 people who are unaccounted for, and they were already searching for every slice of hope that they could. Now, instead of hoping for rescues, we're now just hoping for resuming the search and rescue, Deirdre.
Yeah, Trevor, and this is such a difficult decision for officials to make. I mean, you and I were listening to the press conference this morning, and you could hear it even in their voices. I mean, this is really a delicate call for them to make between searching, where, as you say, every single minute is really important. On the flip side, they don't want to endanger the fire and rescue teams, the rescue workers' potential lives. How are they striking this balance?
Well, they're striking it very delicately, I think, or at least as carefully as they could. You were right, Deirdre. You could hear in their voices that they are reluctant to pause this because they know how important it is to continue that search and rescue, and they have stressed for days that they are not going to give up hope here. Of course, we've known from the beginning that these rescue workers going inside, tearing apart that debris, originally they were going in from underneath the building. They were putting their own lives at risk by trying to save these lives of others. At a certain point, though, I think that all of these officials know you can take unnecessary risk and amplify what is already a horrific tragedy to a point that it would push beyond even what we have suffered so far. And they just say that right now they cannot take that risk so far. Though they did stress they are still not giving up. They are still analyzing this building continuously so that they can determine when it is safe to re-enter. They're not saying we're going to figure out whether or not it's ever safe again for us to continue the search and rescue. They are still looking to analyze it, make sure it's secure, and go back in. They are talking about it as if it is a matter of when they can go rather than if they can go. But this is coming from people who have been defiant and stressing that they're going to continue to be hopeful through this whole situation. We have heard from these officials that they are counting on miracles at this point. And really all that the city of Miami and the city of Surfside and everyone across the country can do is just be hopeful, Deirdre.
Yeah, we did hear the police and fire, or rather the fire and rescue chief say he did use the word optimistic, but to your point, Trevor, he didn't give a timeline as to when they could pick up. What will the president be doing in Surfside today? We know he's there with the First Lady.
He has a pretty extensive, lengthy schedule, Deirdre. He's scheduled to be here for about 8 hours, which for a presidential visit like this is actually quite a while. But we know that in the middle of it, he is scheduled to meet with families of those who either survived, those who have lost loved ones, those who have loved ones who are still unaccounted for. And he doesn't have anything scheduled until 3 hours after that. It doesn't necessarily mean he'll be spending that entire time meeting with them, but it is quite a while where the president could be offering his condolences or support toward these families. And what we know about Joe Biden and his history is beyond politics. This is a president who his very essence is largely shaped by his own grief. Deirdre, we know that President Biden he lost his wife and child when he was much younger. He then lost his son Beau to cancer. He talked about how that grief shaped him when he was running for president, and we've seen in instances of tragedy how he's deeply affected and how he does like to connect to these families. So we know that at least part of his visit today will be speaking with those families who are going through a heartbreaking tragedy in a way that he has gone through something similar himself. Beyond that, he's been meeting with Florida officials, local officials, and at least in this briefing so far, because he just arrived here very recently, he is insisting he is only here in a supporting role, that this is Florida's show, that he's just making sure that they have all of the resources and the backing that they need, and that he's quite sure the federal government can pick up the tab for whatever they need to do here. A lot of it, though, is just going to be supervision, and it's still even up in the air, Deirdre, whether or not President Biden will be visiting the scene. We heard from an official that he likely will, but that was sort of up in the air because before the search and rescue was paused, there was concern that the president's visit, taking a president anywhere can cause quite a stir or even a disruption. The Biden administration and local officials offered lengthy assurances that President Biden's position here would not disrupt that search and rescue effort. Of course, right now, there is no search and rescue effort to disrupt. But if we were to be fortunate and get to a position where the search and rescue could begin once again, it is likely President Biden would not be getting anywhere near it out of wanting to make sure that he wasn't disrupting what was happening, Deirdre.
Trevor Ault, thank you so much for your excellent reporting. We'll continue to count on you throughout the day. Trevor Ault there for us in Surfside, Florida. Well, Prince Harry, Prince William reuniting earlier today to unveil a statue honoring their late mother, Princess Diana, on what would have been her 60th birthday. We will have all the latest live from London when we come back. Welcome back. Prince Harry, Prince William reuniting earlier today to unveil a statue honoring their late mother, Princess Diana, on what would have been her 60th birthday. The brothers unveiled the statue of Diana in her former home in Kensington Palace, where the boys grew up. Maggie Rulli has more.
Just moments ago, Prince Harry and Prince William reuniting to honor their beloved mother, Princess Diana, on what would have been her 60th birthday. Her boys unveiling a much-anticipated statue at her former home, Kensington Palace, where the pair grew up. The brothers, who attended the small personal event without their wives.
I think this statue is hugely significant because it is a definitive tribute from her sons, from William and Harry. It's their shared vision of how they want her to be seen and how they want her to be remembered.
The world watched Diana raise her boys. She was a hands-on mom. And the world grieved with them when she passed. William, just 15, Harry, 12, united then, but now a rift between them. Harry, claiming jealousy, drove him and Meghan from the royal fold. But according to royal author Robert Lacey, William threw Harry out after an explosive argument over whether Meghan was mistreating staff. William never publicly addressing the row. The two last seen together, standing apart as they honored their grandfather, Prince Philip, during his funeral just 2 months ago. Today, their brotherhood is under the spotlight once again.
I think there's been a lot of hope that an event like this would bring the brothers back together. And it's certainly true that their mother's memory and honouring her memory is pretty much one of the only things that really unites them right now.
Maggie Rulli joining us with more. So, Maggie, a lot of pressure on the brothers today. Every move analyzed. What was that moment like with the brothers reuniting?
Well, you know, Deirdre, for me, it was a really special day. We did see the two brothers together finally again. There were some photos of them taken smiling together. So, many people are hoping that this is a chance for that very public rift to start to be healed. But more than that, Deirdre, it was so striking to me just what a personal event this was. It all happened right behind me where those bushes are in a place called the Sunken Garden. It's a place that was very special to Diana, very special to the boys. And it was such a private event. It was really just a media immediate family. This was not full of royal fanfare. The Queen was not there. There were no speeches made. It was really just the family coming together, talking with one another on what is a day where they all have a shared grief, there to honor the legacy and unveil this statue. And the statue means so much to the brothers. They commissioned it almost 5 years ago, and it's something that they want to remember their mother by. So, so many people, again, focused on that very public rift. You cannot ignore it right now, Deirdre. Of course, we're going to talk about it. But I was really hopeful today that a lot of the focus was also on Diana and the fact that the boys were here, the shared love for their mother. Hopefully, this is a step forward for not just them, but the entire family.
So, Maggie, who else was at the event? I heard you say it was very quiet, very private, almost family-oriented. But who else was there?
We know her Diana's brother, Charles Spencer, was there, as well as much of the Spencer family. And then it really was just the two boys. It was Prince William, it was Prince Harry, close family. Two people that weren't there were their wives. Now we know that Prince Harry's wife, Meghan Markle, just had a baby. She stayed back in California, and that could be part of the reason why Kate chose to stay behind as well. Make sure the focus really was just on the brothers, the fact that this statue was commissioned by them. It didn't come from the palace. This was something the brothers wanted to remember their mother by. Prince Charles was also not there, Diana's ex-husband. He chose to step away and make sure that this was a moment where his sons could really shine and do something to remember their mother by. So again, all the focus on those two boys. And Deirdre, in another sort of glimpse of maybe some movement forward, they did put out a joint statement I want to read for you. They said, "Every day we wish our mother was still here with us. Our hope is that this statue will be seen forever as a symbol of her life and her legacy." So again, really trying to make this not even about their rift, but about that joint statement saying they are united right now in their shared love, making sure the focus is on their mom on today, what would have been her 60th birthday.
Maggie, thank you so much. Maggie Rulli joining us there from London. We have a quick break to take. We'll be back in just 2 minutes. Welcome back. The fallout continues after Bill Cosby was released from prison yesterday after his sex assault conviction was overturned due to a technicality. Cosby returned to his home outside of Philadelphia yesterday afternoon following a ruling by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Lindsay Davis has been covering this story from the start. She has the latest.
This morning, Bill Cosby is officially a free man, following a ruling by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturning his conviction for sexual assault. The comedian telling me in a phone conversation about his disappointment with some of the coverage.
Nobody had the sense to say, wait 1 second, this doesn't match up with the truth. This is not what I was taught in college. This is not what I was taught at home.
Cosby then came out with a statement maintaining his innocence, thanking fans, supporters, and friends. The 83-year-old now back at home, flashing a peace sign to the cameras.
What we saw today was justice.
The legendary comedian previously found guilty and sentenced to prison in 2018, accused of drugging and sexually assaulting Temple University employee Andrea Constand. But the Pennsylvania Supreme Court reversing that decision Wednesday because of an agreement his legal team had struck with a former prosecutor that he would not be charged if he agreed to testify in a 2005 civil suit brought by Constand. The court says Cosby will not be retried on the same charges, and that decision is, of course, sparking reaction on both sides. Felicia Rashad, who portrayed his television wife Claire Huxtable, celebrating the news, writing on Instagram, "Finally, a terrible wrong is being righted. A miscarriage of justice is being corrected." While Cosby always maintained his innocence, he was dogged by accusations of drugging and sexually assaulting dozens of women, which he has also denied. Now, for many of Cosby's accusers, anger and frustration. Constand releasing a statement calling the decision disappointing and saying it may discourage those who seek justice for sexual assault in the criminal justice system. That sentiment is shared by Lisa Lott Lublin, who testified against Cosby, accusing him of drugging and sexually assaulting her in 1989.
He cannot take back his lifestyle that he had previously of being this America's dad. That is gone forever.
One legal analyst that we spoke to put it this way. She said that sometimes legal law and moral law don't always coincide. The Cosby district attorney released a statement saying that Cosby is free on a procedural issue that is irrelevant to the facts of the crime. Deirdre?
Lindsay Davis, thank you very much. That does do it for this ABC News Live update. I'm Deirdre Bolton. Thank you for joining us. Remember, ABC News Live here for you all day with the very latest news, context, and analysis. Stay safe and have a great day.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.